Sure.
Okay. I'm Beth Hassett. I'm the Executive Director of Weave, and I'm here with Jamie Garrick, who's our Director of Counseling and Outreach. Talk to you a little bit about our proposal, and then you're welcome to ask questions as well. So, about Weave, for those of you who may not know, we are the Rape Crisis Center for Sacramento County. We're also one of several domestic violence agencies, the largest and the oldest, and we also work with victims of sex trafficking, both adults and children, which is newer for us. We do 24/7 response in the form of actually going to hospitals and to police stations and wherever the victims are, meeting them and intervening and stabilizing their crisis. We have extensive housing options for people. We have a 24/7 support line that answers about 13,000 calls a year. And then we offer counseling services as well as other legal services and such that clients might need. Our mission is to build a community that doesn't tolerate domestic violence and sexual assault, and also supports victims. On the victim side, those are the services that we offer. On the building this community that doesn't tolerate these crimes, that's where the type of program that we're bringing up here comes to play. It's everybody's problem. It affects all of us, whether we know it or not. And one of our key strategies is to get to leaders in the community who can actually use their influence for good and make a difference in the lives of victims. Silence Doesn't Work Here is the name of the program, and it grew out of a tragedy in Rancho Cordova when a woman who worked in the call center for Verizon was being stalked and harassed by her ex-boyfriend. And he knew where she worked, and he knew what time she got off work and went to work. So he hung out in the parking lot and gunned her down in front of a group of her coworkers at Verizon. So Verizon approached us about creating a program to educate workplaces about domestic violence and stalking and sexual assault, and help to make them safer and help businesses come up with strategies to make sure that their workplaces are safe for those victims. It kind of limped along for a few years, and then 2 years ago SB 400 passed, which basically makes victims a protected class in the workplace, gives them a whole lot of rights to seek services, to have their schedules changed and have accommodations if they're not safe in their workplace, and also really puts a pretty heavy mandate on supervisors and managers that if somebody discloses that they're a victim, they need to hop to it and actually do something to make sure people are safe. So at that point, we're like, the time is right. We've got this curriculum. We've got a program in place. We really need to get into businesses. And I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to talk more about the program and what we've done so far, and then I'll come back and tell you what we're hoping to do here should we be selected.
Okay, I'm going to have to wear my glasses. Let's see here. So these are some of the businesses that have participated with us for Silence Doesn't Work Here. And what we do with Silence Doesn't Work Here is we customize it to the business. And so for all of these, it looked a different way. So let's say when I went into Sacramento Food Bank, they wanted me to come to a staff meeting, like a brown bag lunch, and talk to all of their employees about if a coworker discloses that they have been abused in a relationship or have been sexually assaulted, how do I respond? How do I refer? How do I help them? And so that was the approach we took with Sacramento Food Bank. But we have all these other SMUD, Western Health Advantage, Sutter Health, Kaiser Permanente, all these other different businesses and healthcare organizations where we ask, what do you need? What would work for you in terms of, is it human resources? Is it supervisors? Is it coworkers? Or is it all of the above? And we meet them at different levels to talk about what domestic violence is, what sexual assault is, how to recognize the signs, and how to respond and refer for help. So those are some businesses we've been working with. Why should employers care? Workplace violence is a huge thing, and I think often what gets forgotten under the umbrella of workplace violence is domestic violence, and it's huge. The statistics are really high. I'll go into that in a little bit, but it impacts all of us. It's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men that will experience sexual assault or domestic violence in their lifetime. So that's a lot, and it impacts us in terms of dollars as well. You know, loss of productivity, missed days at work, phone calls at work, stalking, all of these things. And so there's quite an impact on employers and employees. And like Beth was saying, there are laws in place now where we can support employees, whether that's with you know, changing their work schedule or changing where they work in terms of if there's a different location, or how to support them if they need to go get a restraining order. So it's knowing the laws and knowing what safety planning we can do to take place so that people aren't at risk for violence in the workplace. These are some statistics who is impacted. So it is 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men. And 3 women and 1 man are murdered daily by their current or former partner. All you have to do is, unfortunately, read the Sacramento Bee, and you'll see these stories actually on a daily basis. DV costs $5.8 billion a year. That's emergency room costs, lost days at work, you know, it's days in the shelter, it's all of the above. And up to 15.5 million children witness some form of domestic violence annually. And we at Weave take that very seriously, and that's a big part of what we do in terms of our services serving children. Why talk about this at the workplace? It's really important to learn how to recognize the signs of abuse. It's a unique opportunity to reach and refer victims, creating a safe work environment and positive relationships, and learn about the laws. We were recently somewhere doing a Silence Doesn't Work Here presentation for Allstate, and it was really, there was probably, what, 50 people there, high-level managers, and a lot of them had experiences with employees that had come to them, or people that they knew about who were experiencing domestic violence, and they didn't know, what do I do? You know, what is my role? You know, do I get involved? How much do I get involved? You know, how can I support my employee? How can I support the coworkers? Because it's not just that one person, it's everyone who is impacted. And so everybody, it was just really interesting how out of these high-level, you know, managers all throughout the state of California, many of them had experiences with employees where this actually occurred. Someone came to work with bruises. You know, people didn't know, what do? I don't want to talk about it. You know, it's personal. And, you know, of course, that we believe in intervening. That Silence Doesn't Work Here is about recognizing the signs and responding in an appropriate manner and referring for help. And that's what we do in terms of training for our businesses that we work with. This is a sample training agenda, and of course it can be customized to whatever, you know, company, business we're working with, small, medium, large. But we go over the definition and dynamics of domestic violence and sexual assault, the warning signs to look for, how to support and respond, and employee and business commitment to a violence-free work environment. Again, learning how to recognize, respond, and refer, and of course our services, so that everybody knows how to access services when they need it. You know, and that could be the support line, or maybe it's someone actually needs emergency shelter. So, you know, we have such a range of services, very comprehensive, and so not everybody knows that, you know, what we offer. Sometimes people think, oh, you only contact Weave if someone wants to leave the relationship, but that's not the case. There's a whole range of folks that we serve, men, women, and children.
So the other thing we also do is reinforce the like the EAP and other things that might already be in place at a workplace that sometimes employees forget that, you know, we're paying for those resources for them. So again, this is what we ask them to commit to. So our vision for this project is that we assemble a group of ambassadors from the Metro Edge, Chamber of Commerce, Leadership Sacramento, whoever is interested in working with us, is willing to be trained, and is willing to serve as an ambassador in their own workplace or within their own industry or wherever their sphere of influence is, to actually get us in to be able to reach these employers, these employees, and get the word out and train more people. what it would look like is we would do 4 recruitment type events, mixers, whatever seems appropriate for the group that we're addressing, that we would train, we said 8 to 12 ambassadors. If there are more people that are interested, of course we're willing to train whoever's interested. We'd have updates and networking meetings, and we'd be building the capacity of businesses and employees to get this message out on our behalf as part of being a part of this community that wants to end this type of violence. We feel like it could be a very meaningful and long-term volunteer opportunity for people to really go deep into the root causes and signs of domestic violence and how we can make a difference in our community. We would offer, obviously, continued support. We're not picturing that you'd be trained and off you'd go. We would support you, maybe tag team on some of the trainings until the ambassadors got up and running, but are really feeling like it could be a very powerful opportunity for folks within those 3 entities. And open for questions and any thoughts you guys might have about this proposal.
So currently this program is in place and you already are working with businesses?
Yes, we are.
And so the Inspire Giving side would be assembling people to be part of your ambassador program, or?
Yeah, and let's target new businesses. I mean, frankly, we've got about 1/4 of a person plus whoever's available to go out and do these trainings right now. So we need more boots on the ground to be able to get into more businesses. And I mean, right now we've been responsive to people who contact us. I mean, we've gotten, like Allstate contacted us and said, you know, this is a big initiative for us, can you come in and do a training? We're going big and deep with SMUD at this point. We're working with them on multiple levels. But you know, it's what we can do and it's who's interested, and there just aren't enough of us to go out and really spread the word and see who's willing to take this on. Yes?
I think too, oh, sorry.
Beth, maybe just back up so you're still on camera.
Right there, stay right there.
I was gonna say, I think too, just to have that liaison between that specific business and we, they feel like this is something I'm passionate about, and so then you get this training and support from us, and then you become that liaison so that people like your business can come to you and say, okay, I think we need to have that brown bag lunch now, you know, I think this is coming up at work or whatever, and then we can support them with that. And so it's nice to have that collaboration where we're not just going in and doing it, but it's that collaboration with that person who's in the business too.
So this is give more, sorry.
I was just wondering, I noticed a number of private entities. Do you get paid for providing the training?
Sometimes, but usually not. Well, you know, I mean, at this point, nobody has to do it. It's not like sexual harassment training. It's really who recognize. I mean, where we've been most successful is like at VSP, their director of marketing had a friend who was killed by her husband in another county. She was passionate about it. She contacted us, and so we went in and worked with her. Other times it's been our board members, like Western Health Advantage. We've got Gary Mizell's on our board, so we went in and trained his staff. So it's really, and some people have given us an honorarium, but yeah, at this point, no, we're not getting paid to do it.
Well,
Judy and Liz,
George lawyer paid for the training. People will do that.
and we touched on it towards the end of the space we had in the proposal. That is where the knowledge and the capacity through the entities that are reflected through Project Inspire can bring value, and we talk about that coming together. That some of the brain power to go, wait a minute, exactly what you're saying of pay for this, don't give it away. So in terms of not only building capacity of businesses, it's also building Weave's capacity.
Is there a financial, is there a financial need connected to this, or personnel and volunteers that you're trying to?
It's humans, and then just to create the materials is what we had in the budget. Was actually did you bring a little card?
Yeah.
We have little cards that we give out that are kind of a cheat sheet of what are the signs of domestic violence, sexual assault, and stalking that are really easy to hand to somebody who you think is in need, or to keep in your own desk as a reference. So we put money in the budget to print those up, and we also can customize signs and those kinds of cards for for each business if they're interested in those. Yes?
So, as a follow-up to Casey's question, with the $10,000 grant, what would you specifically do with that money?
We would train folks and provide and create all the materials that we need for everybody to go out and use in the workplace.
And so train the ambassadors.
Yes,
Right.
training the ambassadors.
Right.
And
so
so when you're
it's-
saying training ambassadors, but you're talking about training them through your facility,
Mhm.
so in essence, it's.
It'd be like
payment that you
material, it'd be creating materials, feeding them,
Okay.
you know, that kind of thing, making it a pleasant training experience. But then also, like I said, creating customized and generic little cards like that, those I think are in Spanish and English. But
Right,
it just
the
depends on the
trifolds work really
workplace.
well because people can put them in their wallets or purses really easily, and they, but to customize them is really important. And then posters, a lot of businesses like the little posters that they can put in the bathroom still, things like that, or.
And Ryan Saltzman and Einhorn created some posters for us pro bono, but we just haven't had any way to print them. So that would be part of it, is being able to print posters. We need paper and ink.
To follow up, Michael, is the ability to take it to scale. If we go and we train, and that 8 to 12 is obviously a minimum number. To take that to scale if there's interest, and we start looking at some of the sizable businesses in our region, that can be a significant amount of resources that need to keep them stocked. So it's making sure there's enough that we can take all of that to scale on the front end, so that when there's interest, we're not asking someone to just wait a little bit.
Okay.
And what would you do if Inspire Giving doesn't select you? Is there?
We'll
would you
keep
be in a-
plodding
Keep
along.
plodding along.
It felt like a good fit for this type of volunteer and this level of volunteer, and we have not had that many opportunities. I mean, we've got a legal committee that does our workshops, it does some pro bono legal work, but other than that, we just don't have a lot of opportunities for business people who want to really contribute and do something that connects them to the business community to volunteer at a deep level like this.
Yeah, and I think it's the diversity of the businesses you represent, and also, again, the difference here is it's not just me going out to businesses all the time. It's initially me training you, and then you becoming that trainer in your neck of the woods, wherever you are, with support from me, from prevention and education. So that's unique in that way, where you then become that ambassador for your business with support from WEAVE. That would be the goal.
One other point, having been through the program, I think a lot of times the volunteer opportunities and groups we get, yes, there's absolutely needs for that one-time volunteer opportunity, or the group painting, or raising funds for a nonprofit. This felt like a very different opportunity to bring to the Chamber, to Metro Edge, and to Leadership Sacramento, where there's an ongoing, and it's building employee capacity, it's building business capacity. It is very symbiotic with benefits for everyone involved.
A quick question, I just noticed that this is in a number of different languages. Is there a particular culture that you find this is a problem with, or is it across all cultures?
You know, it's across all cultures. It looks different in different businesses. One business that we trained was all data, which is like car people, and there were a lot of men involved. And you know, it's a different dialogue when you've got mostly men in the room versus women. And but we found, like at Allstate, it was heavily male in there, and they were the ones who really wanted to know what to do when they're encountering these women. But it also depends on if we're talking to the leadership of an organization, supervisors, versus the workers. And the workers have such an impact on their coworkers' lives because they see each other every day, and they notice if she's getting 500 text messages a day, if she's showing up late. And so many of the clients we serve say, you know, it was just that one person saying the right thing to me at the right time that inspired me to get help and to move forward. So getting to peers of people in the workplace is another huge piece of this. Yes?
Kind of going back to Liz's point, because I work for Sacramento County, and so, I mean, we buy these training materials, and we, go through these trainings, and it's just part of our required training, which is great, so and people make money doing this, so that's why I'm surprised you're not charging for your your services. But separate and apart from this, I think you should, you know, and especially, you know, reaching out to some of the union organizations and having them pay you to do some of these things for their members. Because, I mean, it strikes me that, I mean, it would be asking a lot, maybe from my perspective, and that's not everyone's perspective, but I might be really uncomfortable, you know, not being a trained professional, regardless of the training that you provide me, to be in the workplace and then be that confidant, you know, for somebody. I mean, that's kind of a lot of responsibility for someone who doesn't really have a lot of training. And so I think there needs to be, you know, a lot more support and backup, you know, which you all provide. But where there's something that's a little bit separate, that people can still have that and still have some of the anonymity, you know, I think provides some huge, you know, business plan growth for y'all.
Well, and that would be very welcome as some kind of planning forward. Like I said, at this point we've been, let's just see if people will let us in the door and let us do this. And we've gotten great reviews so far. So I think we're poised to make some next steps, and charging for it may be what we do.
And also, I mean, part of that is the piece about the confidant. I mean, that's not what this employee would be. I mean, there's a lot of boundaries that have to, you know, be in place in terms of their role. And it's not, you're not the counselor, or, but it's basically being there in terms of providing empathy, but then saying, hey, here are some resources for you. You know, and if there's another level to go up to in terms of talking about accommodations, then we can talk about that and move it to that level. But yeah, I mean, we have to be really careful about boundaries, and so that people don't feel like they are the confidant or they're being put in a place where they don't feel comfortable.
Well, one example I'll give is that SMUD, who does give us money, by the way. There is one particular employee who is in a supervisory position, but she's the one who really took on being the liaison. So she's the one who's connecting us with their employee resource groups, so we can go in and speak to their women's group and such. And she's the one who's communicating with HR when we have documents that are sample documents, to give them to her HR and her legal people to incorporate into what they're already using. And that's been very, very effective, just because she's kind of our little, you know, person champion on the inside, who's making sure things continue to move forward, and she gets us in on their education week and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're picturing.
So this is generally geared towards larger employers with HR departments. So the number of small businesses that, I mean, do you have is there a streamlined offering to that?
I would argue that the small businesses need us more, because the big businesses with lawyers tend to have some of this covered better than the smaller businesses, sole proprietorships, or, you know, people.
So how do you reach out to them, to small businesses? Do you have different, when you're speaking to the executive staff,
well, like when I spoke to Sacramento Food Bank staff, I mean, it was their staff meeting. They had maybe 50 people there, and it was the best way, because that way people felt like they could come up to me after and ask questions, and that was everybody right there. It wasn't, you know, 5,000 people. Smaller groups, like even when we go into schools, the classrooms, we want to go into the classroom and talk to 30 students, not the assembly with 500. It's way more effective to have the smaller groups, so we can really have those conversations and those questions can get asked. So the smaller businesses are really key, I think, to really, you know, getting the word out, being really effective in what our message is, and, you know, just that help is out there. So.
Yes.
I'm curious how you see activating the members of Metro Edge and Leadership Sacramento when both of those programs usually have their own beneficiary. Like Metro Edge is about to name Next Move as their beneficiary, and Leadership Sacramento is currently selecting theirs. So
It'll speak to the people that it speaks to.
awesome.
Anything else? This looks like the committee to be on.
We can talk after.
Are you the recruitment chair?
January 26th, 1 p.m.
Oh boy.
Love to have you.
I usually see Patty at, 8 in the morning where there's barely coffee, So, all right, well, any other questions? If not, thank you so much for at least considering this and bringing it out.